Are you in a bomb shelter right now? You've got some.
I'm in the basement. This is where I've set up my home office.
Okay, I was a little worried. I didn't know how seriously you were taking this COVID thing. If you need help, blink twice. If you're being held hostage, Sam Yost, just let me know. We can come help you. Yeah. Okay.
Well, everything's good.
Yeah. If that's all right. Yeah. Just work it into the man bun there. There we go. There you look at this guy. All right, brother.
Well, am I live right now? Are we actually on the stream? This is all going to go in there?
This is streaming right now, right on live on Canadian Public Access TV.
For all of our like 5 viewers.
Yeah. All 5 viewers in Sault Ste. Marie are watching live right now, and they are loving this. I love the bomb shelter though. It's a nice touch. Well, let me kick this off here, Sam. You might have seen my next guest swinging large metal objects around on his Instagram. We got to get into that. But if you follow Sam, he's doing a lot of swinging of large metal objects. He's a BJJ OG in the Niagara region. Another fellow old man like myself, been at it for a very long time. One of the coolest guys. You're one of the nicest guys, I think, in the game. BJJ black belt in 2019 under Gringo Cicero Costa. Brown and black belt division gold medalist at the Provincials in 2019. Where's that medal, Sam? How come it's not hanging up there in your bomb shelter right now?
I have it at the gym. I actually keep all my medals and all my I have all my belts too. I haven't decided what I'll do, but I feel like them at the gym. If I have them at home, I'm the only one that looks at them. Like nobody really sees them. It's, and then we have our collection and everything, and all the ones that people, donated or just kept there.
That's cool, man. I like that look when you go into a gym and you just see all like, you've got kind of like the history of all the success the gym's had. I think it's a good look. But yeah, brown and black belt division, a good way to end 2019. So when the sport got canceled, at least you'll have a good memory. A gym owner and head instructor of Evolve MMA. Aside from this, he could very well be on his way to becoming Canada's next top chef. If you follow his Instagram, it's a lot of metal objects and a lot of cooking. He's a father, and he's aging like fine wine. We've got Sam Yost here. How you doing, buddy?
Great. Thank you, man. Thanks for having me.
Of course, dude.
I was really surprised you asked me to be on here. I was like, you had all these other famous guys like Lachlan, and you had world champions and stuff. And I was like, okay,
buddy,
he's asking me to come on his show. I felt like,
that's crazy. Like, no, man. I honestly, when I was sitting down and I created a list, you were one of the first guys. And like, I'm just kind of reaching out to people, man. Like, I want to talk to everybody. Like, I'm not just, it's interesting because like you start a podcast like this and it's like, people think, oh, you got to go talk to like Gordon Ryan. It's like, but people in the community are more interested in hearing about people that they know and are connected to, right? Like sometimes when you talk to somebody that just because they might be on this massive stage, sometimes you're not as connected to them, right? Like they see people like you, they see you as a gym owner, and I'm sure they want to hear your story too. So absolutely, man. Like you were one of the first people I had on there, and I was just kind of trying to get everything going. So it's my pleasure to have you on. I mean, I've kind of known you on and off for a while, and I feel like we've never really had a chance to sit down and chat. So it's a good opportunity to finally break the ice here a little bit. But I mean, look, man, it's been a wild year. I'm starting off with most people just because I'm so curious. I've only had really 2 gym owners on to this point. And I'm just curious from your perspective, like how you've been, how you're managing, and what sort of living kind of as a gym owner has been like for the last, 6 or 7 months for you.
Man, it's been, I think, I have a really good team behind me, and my partners we run our facility together. We're managing pretty much as best we can. A lot of gyms, they went into the online stage and they did, the Zoom calls and they, I support people that chose to do that, but with my guys, we decided not to do that. It's been hard for us to adjust our product to basically meet the requirements and obviously have class, right? So we're doing everything with restriction, and we're doing the best that we can. And man, I'm honestly, I've been really happy training again. It's been nice to have like a regular schedule. And we only started our programs like back in September, so we've actually only been back for like 5 or 6 weeks, and then most of the summer we were just doing like studio style training. So it honestly reminded me like when I first started, the type of training where you go in like your friend's garage or and we have a huge facility, and we basically were only offering everything by appointment. So I don't know how to describe it all. It's really hard. I've been having a lot of trouble like even talking about the COVID because it's like it's been so hard to even discuss it with people because everybody has their own belief and what
Yeah.
we're allowed to do, and but we're just following, like I said, the guidelines that are set out. And Niagara originally we got held back because we're kind of like a border town, and
Yeah,
with the
absolutely.
being like Niagara Falls for me is about a 15-minute drive. I can get right to the border crossing, get right to Niagara Falls, New York. So and then I think when we got into phase three, they allowed, your social circle to go. You can have up to 50 people in an indoor setting, et cetera. So all the older restrictions are basically still the same for us right now.
Yeah. Well, it's just been such a frustrating experience, and like the thing that I've kind of talked about with a couple other gym owners, I think it was Kent Peters, and it was just this idea that like everybody's got their own opinion about it, but it's often a reflection of how much the virus and what's happening is affecting you directly, right? So some people are okay with it because maybe they're teachers, maybe CERB is covering what they're doing, but we're not really in it together on an equal playing field in the sense that you're going to have this is going to be much more detrimental to gym owners and that sort of thing. And so it seems like some segment of the population is completely fine with lockdowns because it alters their life, but not dramatically so. And so I think it's important to just talk about gyms because this whole idea of the lockdowns is really bearing more burden on people like small business owners. And I don't sometimes think a lot of the general public that isn't in that industry really gets it.
Yeah, but so not just like gyms, but restaurants and other
Exactly. Yep.
small businesses. Like, I take my gi to go get stitched at the same place like every time. So like, that person, they're not operating their business, or I go see the same sign guy to do all my work and all my print and everything.
Yep.
So you're seeing a lot of businesses like that, right, where they're not allowed to operate. But it's hard because some places are, if you're considered essential, then you're allowed to basically operate, and obviously with restriction. Um, and then I think that's what happened in Toronto right now, or the
Yep.
three regions that they're, all the non-essential services are not being offered. But you know, I read a lot about health, and I'm not like, obviously I'm not like well versed, but
Yeah.
I think, yeah, having your health is super important. Like I think when you're not when you're used to training all the time, or if you have an outlet to get out your physical energy, or even for some people it's really more mental or spiritual, and then some people it's a social thing for them too. So depending on the type of person you are, right? Some people are they're like they like to stay alone, and other people they need like to be around other people all the time, right? So that's what I think was really hard, is like how are we deciding what's essential? Because I think like gyms and even if I wanted to go, like right now I can still go and have lunch indoor or outdoor with a friend or whatever, right? Like have coffee, for example.
Yeah.
So
No,
and so
it's
and that's what I believe, is that it's super essential for us to allow people to have this type of an outlet, especially because you're seeing all the other numbers with mental health and all the stuff
yeah.
that it's been really hard to even just stop reading and just like not look at that stuff sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, I've had to take a break because it like doing the podcast and stuff has helped because it's nice to connect with people because I live on my own and it's just everything like our whole social network has been disrupted in a lot of ways. Obviously, people are doing their thing, but your whole routine is gone, and that's the piece again that when I talk about us not bearing this, we're not all in this together equally. Is that people that don't train this kind of sport, they're not involved in it. They just look at it and think, well, tough shit, suck it up put your wrestling on hold. But I don't think the people that are involved in it understand that it's basically sort of physical therapy, like mental therapy for people in a physical form. And I don't think they understand the social aspect. And even the World Health Organization has recently come out and kind of changed their stance on lockdown, saying that it's having this tremendous burden on, people's physical and mental health. And I just think it's a piece that the general public isn't aware about. So it's easy for them to just sort of ignore us, kind of,
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. You mentioned something interesting, though, and I wanted to sort of touch on this as you were talking about how it's kind of, we've almost sort of rewound back into the old days, like sort of garage training. And you're a guy that's been in this for a long time. And what were your early days like? Like, take me through that and tell me, like, how you got into it and what training was kind of like for you back in the day. Because you started when? I'm assuming around, what, 2004 or 5 or 6 or something like that?
A little later.
Okay.
I think I want to say 2007. It's
Okay.
like the first picture I have recorded, because I was training when they didn't even have Facebook. Like
That's what?
I still had to upload my camera, my 2 megapixel camera
Oh
phone to
my
my
God.
computer to do like every upload. When I started jujitsu, it's really funny because me and my friends, we were younger. Right? I was really late actually. I think it was like 24, 25 when I started. But
Okay.
yeah, me and my friends, we would just get really drunk. We'd have like Fight Club. We'd come home, we would wrestle like in the
we'd
living
get
room.
really we'd get really drunk. All right, nice.
So we would like challenge each other. We'd have these challenge matches, right?
Yep.
In the living room, we broke everything. Like we were living in college houses, and that's basically how we started. I remember we call it rolling, but we would basically just drunk Fight Club, and we just only grapple till the death, right?
Drunken Fight Club. Yeah.
No time limit, just till whoever quit. And then yeah, on it, that's how I started doing jujitsu. Is I actually lost. I'm super competitive, and I was like, I need to get in shape. I need to do better. I can't and that's honestly like I started doing that, and then
Was this
yeah,
something? Was this because you guys had an interest in MMA, or where was that in sort of the motivation to get going in all this, or was it just purely the alcohol?
just I have a really good like close group like high school friends,
Okay.
and so yeah, we just that's what we would do like. I, and always late at night. It was always like 2 or 3 in the morning. Like like our neighbors and stuff. They probably hated it, but yeah. I don't know how to describe why we would do it, but I just remember I had a friend that was like I sat beside him at work, and he was talking about I always would tell him about this weekend this happened, and I always had a story, and I used to call myself like Joe Rogan because I would also
The Asian Joe Rogan. Yeah.
yeah, and I would ref, so I would ref matches for my friends, like, and I taught them the rules and like no small joint locks, and you
Yeah.
always have to
You got
explain
to keep it
rules to white
civil.
belts.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have to explain it a lot, over and over. That's what I found works.
That's
But
awesome.
yeah, that's honestly that's how I started. And then I was really big at that time. Like I was like 210 pounds,
Really?
and
Because
then
you're about what,
yeah,
5'8" or something along those lines in that neighborhood, maybe 5'9".
I I tell people 5'9", but I'm just under 5'9",
Okay.
like a 16th or an eighth of an inch, but not officially 5'9".
So you're 210. You were 210 at that point, eh?
Yeah, I was at work. I worked like a desk job, a computer desk job, and I literally, we in the summers we would wrestle on the grass, and in the winters we would, wrestle in the living room.
That's
and then
crazy.
and then yeah, I just, I wasn't in shape, and then I really didn't like what I was doing at work, and then yeah, my buddy literally was like, man, I found this guy in Niagara Falls, and we doing jujitsu, and then. I was in the UFC. I watched, Hoist, and I was like really big into it. We were all big
Yep.
fans of it all because it was really big at that time. Like
Yeah,
that was
absolutely.
right when everything was coming out, and it was right when Dana had bought in UFC. And then you start Anderson Silva, GSP, and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So it's like that really inspired me to like just start jujitsu. And then when I was a kid, yeah, my dad put me in Japanese jujitsu.
Oh, okay.
And
So you did have a background in this kind of to some degree, right?
I got my blue belt. I
Okay.
don't know how many years it was, but I think I started when I was like 12, and then when I got to high school, I quit because
Okay.
it obviously was messing with my time. Right, I was in high school. I was in like grade 9, so jiu-jitsu was definitely not on my list of priorities.
But while you guys were kind of having these fights and that sort of thing, and you're getting wasted, was Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu something that was even on your mind? Like when your friend suggested that, was that like, oh, okay, I want to get into it? Or did you even have an idea of kind of what it was and what the martial art was all about?
We'd stay up really late. We watched like Pride because it would come on at like 4,
Oh my God.
really
Pride was
late.
the best. Yeah.
Or we would get up early and we watched that kind of stuff. And then my dad was like, "You took jujitsu," and I was like, I'd watch Hoist, and I'm like, I didn't learn any of these moves. Like we did not do jujitsu, right? So that's when I researched and I found out about Brazilian jiu-jitsu. And then yeah, this literally my friend at work. So I went to my first class like literally the next day, and then my friend from work he literally stayed after a month. He quit, and then
I was gonna say, is he still involved
going.
with it at all, or no? Is he totally
No,
out?
and he was also a work friend. Like I don't even really see or talk to him anymore. But
Wow.
Brent was his name. If I ever see him again, he really did. He was the guy that really started me. Like it's kind of funny how that happened, but yeah.
And so was this the kind of thing? So you get involved with it. You're kind of at Niagara Falls BJJ. And what was it like back then? Like, talk to me about kind of like the style of training. And it's just because, I mean, for people that have been around for a long time, it's just changed so much. Like, I mean, the kind of access to information people have now, and like the openness of training. There's so many good gyms all over the place. Like it wasn't like that at the start. It was much more, you know, you were kind of in a gym and you were expected to stay there, and there wasn't this kind of cross training, or you couldn't just go on YouTube and find all this kind of stuff. So tell me about those early days and what it was kind of like for you there.
So, you know, I started at it was Niagara Falls BJJ, and it was my old coach Vince. You know, it was really nice to have someone that I already knew, and then I also knew my other friends, so I felt really comfortable. And then I got to roll my first practice, you know, and I got crushed. Like,
yeah.
I remember I rolled one time. It was like, whatever, a 3 or 4 minute round, and then I puked. And then, you know, it was really tough, right? Because, you know, they're like, oh, you can do it. You know, they'd make you suck it up, and you know, I puked, and then I'd like, you know, I was wearing some old gi that was like, I don't know how long it was.
Yeah. So you're so what you're trying to tell me is that the drunken fights on the grass did not prepare you for Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Is that what you're trying to tell me?
It was a completely different experience.
Yeah.
Like, I went in there thinking like, oh, you know, I have experience. I've been wrestling with my friends.
Yeah.
You know,
I'm sure you probably assumed you had at least some level of skill at that point.
I only lost like 3 or 4 fights like that I can remember. Right?
So you're basically like the Asian you're the Asian George Masvidal, right? You're like the Kimbo Slice fight days, but you're the jiu-jitsu version of that.
Yeah, exactly. Like literally exactly that. And it was that's basically how I started. And then after that first class, I signed up, I bought a gi, and then I kept going to class. I was doing a lot of no gi at the beginning until right about when I got my blue belt, and then I switched over mostly to gi. I love training in the gi.
Yeah. So what was your road like through the sport? Like everybody, I mean, jiu-jitsu's difficult for everybody, but obviously some people it comes a little more naturally, or do you know what I'm saying? Like they fall in love with it, they understand it. Was jiu-jitsu something that you felt kind of made sense to you, or did you really struggle from the get-go with it? Or just tell me about your evolution, I guess, through the belts a little bit.
You know, when I first started, I really just started to get in shape because, you know, I came off like back to back losses in the fight club.
In the drunken backyard brawls. Oh man, you're going in 0-3 to jiu-jitsu. I see. All right.
And then I literally showed up at the gym. I started training, and then you know, I lost a lot of weight. That was the first time I'd lost. I went from like 210 to like 160 pounds or whatever.
Holy
so
shit.
It was amazing, right? Like 45 pounds, and it was all through jiu-jitsu. I wasn't doing a lot of outside training.
Okay.
And then I think so. Then, you know, we moved around a lot. We moved into a different gym, Fight Club Canada.
Well, I don't mean to interrupt, but that's kind of for me where like I kind of remember, I feel like I might have met you a long time ago because I remember you guys more at the Fight Club Canada location. So how long had you been training before that sort of transition happened? Because you were the Niagara Falls BJJ, and then it kind of became affiliated with Fight Club, right?
Yeah. Then Vince at the time was our coach, and you know, I actually only remember training in the Niagara Falls gym for. It's hard to remember actually because I'm getting really old now.
Yeah, the dementia's setting in. All the CTE from the drunken backyard brawls is catching up with you at this point.
Yeah, I didn't. I think it was like less than 6 months.
Okay, so most of your memories, kind of at early days, are in that room at Niagara Falls Fight Club. Okay, yeah. Well, no, I talk about Fight Club because for me there was something important about that because I remember I was training like. I don't know if you probably don't really remember me from back then, but I was training at a small club and it was kind of like, you know, very insulated and like, you know, I needed to get out of there. Like at some point I realized like I needed to move on because I'd started to venture out a little bit. And that's I'm not trying to take shots at anybody. It's just, you know what I mean? My desire to improve, you kind of, sometimes you outgrow places and situations. And I remember though, Matt Rocca, who I've had on the podcast, he was like, you should come out to Fight Club because that's where he was going. And I remember going to that gym and I got promoted to purple belt way too fast. Like I'd been training, but not nearly long enough. And I remember going to that gym and I was like, holy shit. Like it was, you got a big room of like some really good grapplers. And so for me, it just always, I remember that room because there was some really, really good guys there, and you guys were doing well in competition and all that sort of thing. So I just remember it as a really tough room. And I wonder if it felt like that for you as well, because it was kind of like a wake up call to me that I needed to sort of change what I was doing, you know?
Yeah, like I didn't I think I waited almost a full year, like 9 or 10 months before I actually competed. And Fight Club was like the first club I competed under.
Okay.
And I remember going to my first tournament, and it was, yeah, it was a white belt. And I think I'm trying to remember because this is the first memory I have of Tony. Was I met Tony because he's one of my referees.
Okay.
And
Tony
the
Isaacs?
first time, yeah, Tony
Okay. Yep.
Isaacs. So this is when I met, yeah, I met Tony Isaacs, Jeff Jocelyn. I talk about how every time I see him, I tell him he should have, and when we're allowed to have jiu-jitsu again, he needs to bring the Jocelyn belt back, because only the OG guys that remember that.
Oh
Like,
yeah, back in the Jocelyn.
you'd show up, and remember you'd show and you pay at the door,
Yeah.
and you'd have to wait, like you'd be waiting for like, I don't know, like 12 hours
Yeah.
to fight one like 3-minute match, whether you win or lose, or whatever happens. It's eliminate single elimination,
Yep.
right? So how that goes. And then but yeah, I do remember that, and that's how we started. And I have great memories with everybody there, and I have a lot of great friends that still continue to train with me, from coming over from Fight Club to Evolve MMA. And yeah, man, like it's kind of been crazy. So I'm just trying to remember. I think I started teaching classes when I was a blue belt. I ran a day class for free.
Okay.
Because I wanted to train, and it was with my college schedule and with everything I was trying to juggle. I remember, like, I broke my ankle at college. I was playing basketball.
Wow, okay.
I rolled my ankle and I broke it, and then I took like a year off. Right? I was still working at the bar. They'd sit me in the basement, and I'd have a cast on my foot.
So you were off jiu-jitsu for a year because of that?
Well, not for a year because of that, but it took me like 5 or 6 months to really recover.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then by this time, I had already like gained all the weight that I had lost. Like I already like, it's kind of weird how that happened, because I started as a white belt. I'd lost all that weight, and then by the time I got to blue and I was in college again, I pretty much had put it all back on. I didn't get up to like 210, but I was like 190 or 195 pounds for a really long time, actually, like that.
That's interesting.
But yeah, then when I got my purple belt, so I came back. I took a year to really like invest, because I remember like I really wanted that purple belt. So I was training pretty much every day. I started a day class, and I had like a regular, Monday, Wednesday, Friday group that would come. We train every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 12 o'clock. And that's basically like when I first started teaching. I was just a blue belt. And, that was a long time ago. It's been awesome, though, since.
Oh, that's cool. I mean, you mentioned competition a little bit, and I wonder, because you said earlier that you're a really competitive guy. Is that something? No, but I mean, is that something that you got into early on? And did you have sort of aspirations to be a successful competitor? And what were your experiences like there with competing?
I loved competition. I really, I got really lucky. Not that I got lucky, but I went in my first competition. I remember getting silver. I lost the last match to Chino, actually.
Oh, that
Emilio.
Guy's a beast too. Chino's a monster.
Yeah. So he crushed me in the last match. Like I had done really well, and then he just crushed me. And I was still happy because I got silver, and and then it just made me want to compete more. But then I went into my next tournament thinking like, I was like, yeah, my shit don't stink anymore. Like, I had all these like things in my head, like I'm gonna go there, I'm gonna crush, and then you lose. It's heartbreaking. Like you get really upset. It was really hard to like to handle, and then just the stress of the events and stuff. Like, and we're just talking about like local events, right? We're not.
Well,
about, like,
they're
really...
always like anxiety provoking. I wonder, are you? I find you interesting in a lot of ways, because I've seen you like chatting with you, and then I've seen you compete, and you're a very intense, focused, like kind of stoic about like there's a different and I don't it's really cool. It's just I can see there's a switch with you, and you're kind of all business out there. So I wonder, like, what goes through your head before competition? Are you an anxious guy? And what is that mode you get into? Is that something that it just comes naturally to you? Because it from the outside looking at you, it seems that way. But I always wonder with people like you, what goes through your head when you're getting ready to compete?
Yeah, I just got my black belt like last year, and I had that provincial, right? Like I don't know how many provincial championships or like local tournaments. And there's always, you know, the three that I remember the most are always the provincials, the Ontario Open, and the Niagara for me. So like as I got older, it was really more less about winning all the time. It was like, man, I just really like getting out there and
Yeah.
you know, um, I remember competing in the under 30. So I remember when I had to accept that I was 30 and be like, okay, I can't fight.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
can't. Like, you know, at that time I was 195 pounds, and it was like guys like Nathan Dos Santos and
Oh God, yeah.
so that whole Toronto BJJ like that. They're you know, I really admire, you know, that particular team. But I remember really admiring like top teams like that, and obviously with me and my partnership with Gringo, and it's kind of weird because I really started with them. I remember them being at all the tournaments, and that's how you really started to meet people. Is you just show up all the time every year. You see the same people at all the tournaments, all the same competitors.
Yep.
And you know, it's really hard to actually figure out like everybody has a ritual, right? Like
Yeah,
some
exactly.
people like to listen to music, people like to dance, some people, you know, like I like to be alone. Like I hate you know, people come up like, oh, you know, you're gonna do great today, and for me, it was like I get so mad at people. I'm like, how do you think I feel? You know, I'd always be so
Yeah.
like stressed, right? Like I'm angry. So I remember having to like, you know, tell people like, hey, you know, on game day, just you know, whatever you need to do to get yourself ready. So, like when I started coaching a lot more and going to tournaments and seeing how people react,
Hmm.
and you see, you know, I was really really good in the gym. I think people really you know, they like the style that I train at the gym. We always used to train really hard, like
Yeah.
probably from white until purple. I don't know how many injuries I would have sustained, and the most of it just because it was like going to war. Like we always
You
fought
just
every
yeah.
time. And then as I got older, you know, I got closer to 30. I've been training for 5 or 6 years, and I thought about stuff like how many times have I had to take a year off? How many times have I had to take 5 or 6 months
Right.
off? Those kinds of things for knee injuries and etc. Right? So it
Well, what?
was it was really hard to like really figure out. And then I don't know, I felt like I not that I figured it out, but when I really didn't care anymore about winning, like I remember getting smashed at blue. Like I'd never won a provincial championship until I think purple belt. And then
Okay.
I only I'm trying to remember. I think I had a couple default medals. Like I don't know, but I had lost so many times in the final match that it was like for me it was like a curse. I was like, no, I need to like
Always the
finally.
bridesmaid, never the bride kind of thing.
Yeah, and then so when I got to purple, I remember just I decided like, you know, I was 31, 32, and I was like, you know, I think for me right now, like I just, you know, I had to balance the gym in there and teaching and all that stuff. So
Yeah,
for
it's a
me, it
lot
was
to
more like,
juggle.
yeah, it was me. I just wanted to go out there. And then to be honest, it was really purple belt, like that really, really like showed me like, man, if you want to win, even at 30, you know, you have to show up. Like you can't, you know, and it is people get hurt. I've seen lots of people get injured, and you know the kinds of things that come out of competition. But I really just liked the training, the way that it helps you get ready when you're training all the time. It gives you something to look forward to,
Yeah,
and then after it's
there,
always just win or lose. It's always a big, you know, celebrate or do whatever you have to do. But
it's
you
just
know,
such a good way to keep you moving in the right direction, I think. Like win or lose, it's that focus, it's that anticipation that kind of keeps you more honest in the training room, and it gives you that extra energy you need to push through. And I think that's why competitors do progress so much faster. It's not just getting out there and competing, but it's that long like road to getting to the competition where you're sharpening your tools. There's always you have a
mhm.
sense of in your head there's consequences coming up, and so I think you pay much more attention to your training. You bring a lot more intention to the rounds. You have a game plan, and I think for people that just show up and kind of roll and whatever, that's fine, but it's not the fastest way to kind of improve your game, and I think that's why competitions are so
Yeah.
important. But going back to the mental piece though, did you have more success when you started to feel like the end result didn't matter as much, or were you being successful kind of all the way through with this?
At the beginning, so I got my purple belt. I went into my first tournament. It was like a month in,
Okay.
and you know, I got my belt, and you really, that's when I really noticed the big difference in someone that's competing on the circuit every year, a few tournaments a year,
Yep.
or if they're competing at that like the international level, let's
Yeah.
say. So I always believe that if you could show up and start doing some local tournaments, and then go like next step. Like every if you're doing
Yep.
really well, whether if you're hitting the podiums and you're getting good brackets where you have like you actually have fights. You're not just fighting one guy and getting a gold medal or silver medal.
Yep.
Like I found like I like that experience of like you roll with the same partners all the time, but then you show up on game day and you really don't know who you're gonna get. And then when you get to purple, you do actually start fighting the same people again, and then you
Yeah.
kind of you keep track, right? Like 1-1 or 2-0.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't
Those
really
little
do that.
rivalries.
I don't really do. Yeah, I don't really do that anymore. But I used to look up all my old competitors. I would like see if I had tape on them, and I would like research, and and then you show up, and like everything you thought about, like it never. Sometimes it doesn't happen that way, man. You just and then.
Well, I find that's a good
really
way to build people up to something that they're not as well. Because if you get footage, maybe it's a good match, maybe it's, and sometimes you can psych yourself out a little bit and create monsters in your mind when it's not really necessary,
And people get so nervous, right? Like I remember I used to get really nervous too, and I I didn't have I never had a strategy like with warming up or with what to do before I actually like walk out there.
Right.
A lot of times you've been waiting for 12 hours, and then you just you got to walk on and fight. You maybe haven't ate because you were cutting weight or whatever, right?
Yeah.
So it was like super stressful. And then but yeah, like I found that when I really started to just I didn't care anymore about winning. I knew that if I wanted to be really good on the local scene, that I had to like really dig and train better. So I remember changing a lot of the habits and changing the way I trained and thought about just jiu-jitsu in general, but then also like doing all the fitness stuff. So at that time I was if I had a purple belt in jiu-jitsu, I was probably like a white belt or like a one white belt, 2 stripes in the fitness. So
I'm just curious though, because I'm always interested to hear kind of the changes people make and and how they approach competition. Couple things is, one, you said you changed when you started competing more to understand the levels. You had to make some changes in the way that you trained, and so I wonder if you could elaborate on that. And then the other piece is just, was part of your success also then addressing this fitness component off the mat as well? Because I know some people don't do strength and conditioning. Some people are all for it. So talk to me a bit about some of the sort of training jiu-jitsu on the mat stuff that had to change for you, that at least you felt you needed to make. And then tell me a little bit about this off the mat training and how that looks for you and how it's progressed over time.
Yeah, so I was, like I said, I was really competitive, right? So
yeah.
Suffering all those heartbreaking losses.
Yeah, exactly.
Blue belt is really when I learned that like I wasn't like king shit anymore. But even on the provincial and the local scene, I was still doing pretty good. And then purple, like I said, I really learned like, okay, if I really want to actually win or like have more success, right, then I need to like figure out what I'm doing wrong. So that's when I really started doing open mat, because it allowed me to give me way more partners.
Yeah, and so you're exposed to a lot of different styles as well, which is probably important to you. But
like as far as on the mat training, I'm drilling. So I drill basically all the time. I remember we never used to drill. This is really,
you just used to throw down constantly, basically. Yeah,
we'd always roll. We'd always have technique, and it was always like really hard. It was never like there was no there's no level intensity changes. There was like no change in time, how long, having like, a competition match, a black belt adult right now is 10 minutes, right? So having time matches and stuff like that. So I remember starting to do drilling, doing a lot more of the body weight calisthenics. And then, the kettlebell and the mace came like way later in my career. So
well, that's what I find interesting about you, is just because it sounds like you started by doing this kind of more traditional, squat, but putting up big weight in the gym, but it seems like it's really evolved for you over time. So I just wonder, like, what have you learned about off the mat training, and why has it changed and evolved into what you're doing now?
I still do all the traditional stuff. I just don't when I was 25, I would try to, everything was about max. Like
exactly.
Go into the gym, max bench press. It doesn't matter how good it was or how bad, even legs. I never even did squats. Really, I honestly never really did squats. Like I never would get onto a back squat or front squat.
Right.
It was like every day chest, every day triceps, every day arms, then
Yep.
repeat,
Okay.
repeat, repeat,
Yep.
right? So like, and that's honestly like that's the mentality. And yeah, like it's just it is kind of crazy because what brought me to all this now was that because I kept getting injured because I couldn't figure out like why, and most of my injuries, you know what, aside from the jiu-jitsu related injuries from practice and that's another thing, training too aggressively all the time with.
Yeah.
I really had to slow down how much I was training aggressively. So, there are days where we go in there, we go to war, and then we have like we don't train like that every day. Like we have to have off days. So that's when I was doing a lot of the off mat training.
Yep.
But because I was lifting like that, I was just so sore all the time. Like I literally was so sore.
Yep.
And it was kind of cool because of my first transition. I've lost over 30 pounds like 3 times, and I did it 3 different ways.
Okay.
So my first time it was just jujitsu. So at that time I was out of college, worked forever at a job, never did anything in fitness after high school, right? And then I did the P90X at home workouts for the
Okay. Yep.
for like the 90 or whatever 90 days, and I had a great result. And then when I actually got to the point where I was training at a gym, and then it was like more professional, you had so much more equipment, right? Then you're just doing whatever every other person would do, go to the gym and do all your regular workouts. And like I said, even with that, a lot of people are putting out workout stuff now. Like it's a huge industry with the
It's
people
massive.
putting out online fit, and it's so massive, right? But what I think, I had started steel mace like a year ago, but the kettlebell I've been doing for about 3 years. And the only swing I learned all the basic swings. And then I started seeing people throwing them around like they're juggling and stuff. And I was like, man, I really think this is cool. And I was, I think that's what I liked about jiu-jitsu, because it gave me such a mental, like for me, jiu-jitsu now, it's really more mental. Like I love the way it makes me feel. It gives me like a stress, anxiety, when you find something you really like and you really enjoy the time. And then also like I got to build my life around it. And, it's kind of cool because, leading up to the black belt, I'd really just, all I ever thought about was that belt forever. And then really, as I got into, with the COVID and all those things, and I didn't have jiu-jitsu anymore, I had to find so many other things to basically satisfy my brain, like so I could like just relax a little bit. But yeah, that's how I found all the movement. And then when I was in Asia last year,
explain to people kind of for a second that don't know, like you have this kind of steel mace thing. So just describe what it is and what exactly you're trying to accomplish with it.
Yeah. So I started with yoga. Like I'd taken yoga for a bit, and then, honestly, it sucked. Like I was like, I can't do this.
Right, yeah.
I would do like hot yoga, and I never actually learned anything. Like I just went and did it and whatever, because that's what I heard was supposed to help me with all my injuries, right? Because
that's what everybody says.
I hurt myself in jiu-jitsu, but like I would go and tie my shoe and I'd throw it my back, and I'm like 32 or 31, and I'm like, man, why am I so old? What's wrong? And that's when I really started just yoga movement practice. And then before I started steel mace, I started following all these people on Instagram. I was just trying to do whatever they were doing, but I was swinging a 10-pound sledgehammer. I don't know. I have all these old videos. I probably look like an idiot, and my friends probably thought I was an idiot too. But I was like, whatever. I was really into it. And then I think when I discovered the steel mace, I found it was more of it's a very, like, I don't know, spiritual or mental, like that. That's what I think has brought me to, like, it was really cool, that transition for me, because then I started to notice, I don't know if it was just me being happier or like, my shoulder. I had this problem with my shoulder for so long. I heard it mountain biking, and I was in my mid 20s, and I couldn't, up until I was like 30 or 31, I couldn't throw anything for the longest time. Like I couldn't skip rocks. I couldn't throw a baseball. Like I had this crazy pain. Like I even quit playing volleyball. So like now I'm 37, and I played beach volleyball this year all summer because I'd had a lot more free time, and I started to invest in stuff like that. That was one of my outlets. I played volleyball all the summer, and as far as the unconventional training, the steel mace, I find it's really good. It's like I learned about like stuff like centrifugal force. Like you have a weight that's pulling against your spine. Right. So you have your spine and you're swinging it in rotation. So when I really studied like the science of like certain movements and certain patterns, stuff like swinging, throwing, and running, essentially, I just I found that mace, and then that at first that's what it was, and then I realized like it was really more just about the other stuff. It was like a creative outlet for me, and I really enjoyed it. And then I think from there, the way that I thought about like fitness, the way I thought about how I should train jiu-jitsu, the way I thought about like how we should train jiu-jitsu off the mat. So, up until, to be honest with you, like if we're talking about like a fitness career and a jiu-jitsu career, up until like purple belt, I really didn't have like a great understanding or grasp.
It sounds like in a way that what it sounds like you're saying anyways, that you've had more success both physically and mentally by taking an approach that's less about let's max out in the gym and more about like almost being kinder to your body and working through a full range of motion without really breaking your body down. So you're able to recover from it better. And it just sounds like this more moderate flowing with resistance approach has just led to greater joint health, more physical sort of movement and ability, which is important because I think when people think of strength and conditioning, it's what you talk about. It's like, I got to get to the gym and I got to deadlift 500 pounds. When there's so many different variations of going about being functionally strong, because we all know people that, they probably are super strong and then they go onto a jiu-jitsu mat and they gas out in 2 seconds and they have no range of motion. They've got a lot of muscle mass, but they can't, you know what I mean? They can't wipe their ass or scratch their back. So I just think it's cool to hear what you're saying because it challenges the notion of what we always traditionally consider strength and fit, right? Because everybody thinks of strength as, well, how much can you bench? But it's also how healthy is the joint and, how are you able to recover? How resilient is your body? And I just think it's really neat to hear that you found this kind of other form to kind of keep you healthy and age well in a sport that beats your body up enough as it is.
Yeah, like jiu-jitsu, I feel like has a lot of very good aspects that help you, but not physically. It's physically not a good sport for you because it's the amount of injuries. And then, when I hit purple when I was over 30 and getting hurt at that time was like, it would affect my career because then it would affect how many sessions I was doing a week. It was affecting, what I was teaching, and I was teaching a lot. I was teaching like, a lot of hours, and jiu-jitsu, like I said, it's really hard on your body. So I had to find ways in the training off hours. So like if I was doing all the max squatting and max chest press, I would need like a 2 or 3 day recovery time. And the position I was in, I would get home at 9 o'clock and I had to be back at 10 a.m. or, working on a lot of long hours and stuff. So what I found with all the unorthodox training was that, and when I first started swinging and throwing things, it started to fix like, it fixed weird issues that I'm not noticing anymore. Like it's helping me fix my low back pain. So for example, like I used to think it was okay that I couldn't throw anything. Like, oh, I can't throw a tennis ball or rocks.
That's normal. That's a normal. Yeah, that's what happens.
Without jiu-jitsu, right? Like whatever, I'm tough. And then knee injuries and all that's kind of
fine. Yeah,
you kind of just you just keep shrugging it off, and then it's like everything else. It compounds to a much bigger problem. So later on, I know lots of guys that don't roll. Lots of black belts that I know right now, they're not rolling right now, and I'm not. They maybe are a little older than me, and even myself at that age, I recognize that, hey, if I don't change or switch, like I might I might not be able to, like for me, jiu-jitsu, when we roll, that's really what brings me to like to want to do. I love training. I love being able to drill.
Yeah,
and roll
it's
like
not the kind of sport where you can kind of just go through the sparring is just such an essential component of it, like to get the benefit emotionally, physically, mentally, and all that kind of stuff. But the interesting thing that I think you're talking about is that the other thing we talk about too with gym stuff is like, you think about the bench press and you think about the squat, they're very sort of linear motions. There's no, there's not odd angles. There's not full range of motion in the joint often. And it's like, which is completely opposite of what jiu-jitsu is. And so you can, in a lot of ways, develop strength in certain directions. But with something like a steel mace or a flow, it's like you're working through really like extension and different angles. And it's like the idea that the body has to be strong in like 3 dimensions as opposed to just like, well, can I put the weight from the bottom of my chest forward? Do you know what I mean? Like instead of just working through a linear range of motion, you're working through a full range of motion, which I think a lot of people miss in training and programming.
Yeah, like I sometimes think of all that stuff like it's almost like a four. I don't. It's like four dimension. Like you
Yeah,
have to you think in 3D, but like I found like when I started thinking like almost like in four dimensions, like with all
interesting.
the movement and that kind of practice, it was really, I don't know, like I said, it really helped me. And then I had to really teach myself how to slow down. I couldn't come in and do all the same weight training. And then because I would still injure myself like tying my shoes or
Yeah.
getting out of the
Oh
shower.
yeah.
I don't know, tying my shoes, getting out of the shower,
Yeah.
sit, getting up from dinner and being like, oh, my back. And then it was really stupid stuff like that that really brought me to really study different practices and things that I did it all to help my jujitsu. So, after doing all the conventional stuff for a really long time and finding good success too, like I had great success like physically, and it helped me too mentally, obviously. But with jujitsu, it didn't help me at all. Like it didn't matter what I deadlifted, right? Because
You're
in
talking
jiu-jitsu,
about that like max effort in the gym kind of training, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
it you can get really strong, and I think like I just watched the strongman competition, and
Right.
I
Yeah,
and I
those
watched.
guys are crazy. Yeah.
They are crazy, and I love it. I think it's
Yeah.
awesome to
Yeah.
see. But you look at the build of a strongman; they're not skinny people. You do
No,
not
they're
have
yeah.
someone deadlifting 1,000 pounds when they weigh 165 pounds, right? So,
So
and
you're
I think in
saying
those,
though that like this functional training stuff had
yeah,
more bang for your buck on the mat
more.
than okay. And what
For
was
me,
it
it was
then?
like
What was it that you were feeling that was different than the max effort stuff? Like what exactly was it providing sort of in terms of benefits?
I'll give you an example. Someone
Okay.
landed on my ankle in practice, not on purpose, just a
Yeah,
simple
it happens.
accident.
Yep.
Like they landed and my ankle rolled. So I remember doing like this, like, I don't know, Bruce Lee, like ninja move. My ankle, I rolled
Yeah.
right on my ankle, but I had enough strength to be able to like literally balance all of my body weight on my ankle. And then it was a little sore, but it wasn't like I was back at practice like a day later. It wasn't
That's
anything,
wild. Yeah.
even though I've been training for like 13 or 14 years, up until the last, let's say 2 or 3 years, did I really, really discover like um, the type of training that I think was better for me, for my body, especially at an older age. I'm
Yeah.
37. I think it's really hard for people when they get to 30 to really accept, like, I'm not 20. And then when
Yeah.
you're 30, you're not 20. And then when you're 40, you're not 30, and
Yeah.
etc.
Two things you're just saying. We were talking about sort of the strongman stuff, and it's interesting because I think when you go to the gym and you're trying to lift as much weight, it's like you're almost trying to shorten the range of motion as much as possible to lift the most amount of weight possible. So when you watch a lot of these power lifters, they're squatting, but it's just like they're going to go only as low as they have to go to make it a legal lift. And so they're working through a shorter range of motion, and I don't think you get the same benefit in terms of joint health. But the stuff that you're doing is almost rehab in a way. Like
Yeah.
it's more gentle, and it's almost like you talk about the physiotherapist doing the ultrasound, which effectively is trying to bring blood to the area, and it sounds like you're doing a much more active version of that. You're doing these resistance movements that aren't beating the shit out of your body. They're probably just bringing a lot of blood flow. They're keeping it healthy. You're probably helping to break down scar tissue, and it sounds like it's just making your body more resilient, which you'd think would be the opposite, right? You'd think that deadlifting
Yeah.
1,000 pounds would make you invincible, but it's in a lot of ways it's the opposite, I think, because those guys are pretty messed up too. A lot of those guys.
Well, okay. The strongmen, like I actually have more admiration for the strongman
Oh,
guys
they're
because
crazy. I listen. I love what they do. I'm
some,
just saying
yeah,
it's pretty
some of
intense.
those
Yeah.
guys though, but so the strongman is like powerlifting, but the difference with powerlifting, like in a traditional sense where they're doing barbell and only, like Olympic lifter is much different. Olympic lifting versus powerlifting versus strongman, they're all very different sports. So in powerlifting, you just have to get it up or down. Like basically, if it's a bench press or whatever they're doing in the powerlifting, um, and this is actually kind of cool. This is what I learned. Like you can deadlift so many different ways, and
Mm-hmm.
you know, we can argue about which one's better or whatever. Like,
Right.
and some people like to go the science route. Some people like to go maybe the more spiritual or
Sure.
the
Yeah.
yoga. Let's say the yoga route versus that route. And
Yeah.
but yeah, like I just think that when I started to think about patterns and like the powerlifting, their only goal is to get the weight to whatever height or move it
Yeah.
to whatever bar. So it doesn't matter how you do it, as long as you play within the rules, you do it, right? So
Exactly. Yeah.
uh, I think that's very good for that sport. But if you see how they train and how they eat and stuff, you know, a CrossFit person much more athletic, right?
Yeah, absolutely
And
there.
but also CrossFit, you know, I think some people are really deterred by CrossFit because you kind of see like it's such a high volume, and it is a moderately heavy weight, like, well, not moderately, but like, you know, the stuff that those people are doing is much different than what we would do in the gym, right?
Yeah.
But when I go to the gym, I'm looking at a professional athlete or whoever I, let's say, I follow, and that's like something that we always try to do, right? You're mimicking what everyone else that you see around you is doing.
Yeah.
But when you're like 35, you're not a professional athlete, man. You're a regular old dude. You have a son, you have a job. You can't like lose a month or 6 months of work because
Yeah.
you know, some white belt like cranked on your leg, or maybe you had, you know, your ego got to you and you didn't want to like maybe give up that tap, or, you know. So when I found that always protecting like myself, trying to stay healthy that way, like really changed. And then yeah, like the on mat training had to change too, because through my career, from even the jiu-jitsu standpoint, how we train when we were white belts to blue belts to every belt, it seemed like you learn more, you know, different things. And then when you get to black belt, you know, you think it's like over, but it's honestly not. Like it's almost like it's there's almost more. I don't know how to describe
Oh
when you
God,
get
yeah. It's
when you
well,
get there.
well, it's interesting you bring that up. I just wanted to ask you because we kind of were talking a little bit about your road through the belts, but I thought it was kind of really cool on your Instagram when you got your black belt, which I believe was December to last year, so coming up on a year, not too much longer, which is crazy to think.
Yeah, it's been a year.
But it was interesting, yeah, because you said you felt almost lost in a way. You said because you'd strive for this thing, and I just think it's a really interesting concept because, you know, to the general public, people see the black belt as like the end of the line, and you've achieved mastery, and like, you know, no one can beat you. That's a lower rank, and it's just I wonder if you could take me through kind of what you meant by that, and just what your perception of getting to this rank is when even you reflect on being in a room back in the day where there were like no black belts, and now you've made it there. Like, just talk to me about what it means to you and what your perspective is now having it.
So, you know, when my first professor got his black belt, he was the first person I'd ever seen get a black belt.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until like almost 10 years later that I actually saw another person get a black belt. So it was really few and far between. It was like a really, like, you know, then 2000, I feel like the generations, more and more people had started to get so popular. UFC really sprung jiu-jitsu and Muay Thai, and then people started doing those sports for fitness. It wasn't to go and be UFC. Everyone was started as a UFC fighter, right? Like in the drunk fight club, and then they go and train and they realize, like, man, it's nothing like that. So it was really cool to see that transition. And then when I got to black belt, I'd been thinking about this day for so long. I was like, you know, I don't know how many times I thought about that day. I even wrote a speech, you know, and I didn't even say a speech. I never, I thought it was so important that I would write a speech. And and I had this, it's really stupid because I don't think it's stupid now, but I think what I did was I had this speech and I would come back at it all the time and I would write, you know,
edit it.
And it was really stupid. Like, I think of it as stupid now because I scrapped the whole idea, because I remember when I got to that point, I was like, man, like I don't, I felt like I didn't, like, what do you do now that you're a black belt, right? And then I realized it wasn't, the belt is really important because it shows you like your progression. So everyone learns like you have a start and you have a finish, right? So everything that we do is like start and finish. But then in real life, it's not really like that. You're all like, everything's, you know. So with jiu-jitsu, that I got to that black belt, and I think when people call me master, that's why I'm not saying I don't like it, but I always prefer people either call me coach or professor. Like, I'm not into like Sensei Sam, and you know, and it's cool. Like,
hey, that's got a nice ring to it. You
cool
could sell a nice line of merch as Sensei Sam merch.
You know, so I think for me, it's not about the respect. It's about jiu-jitsu is just something I really started as a hobby, and then I made a career out of it. And then I'm showing, it's cool to show other people, and you see how how people progress through jiu-jitsu, and then also, you know, whatever their career or maybe their personal life, whatever. I found that I don't know, having that was so much more important than winning literally a $5 medal, right? Or,
Yeah.
you know, losing a match, you know, the losing a match in the gym just because you get tapped out, you know, by someone. You know, when you're 30, you learn all that because you know already. Like I've been in rooms, you know, training with the gringos in some of the rooms. They're one of, you know, when I first
Oh, there's a
started
room
visiting
full of
gringos,
monsters there. Yeah.
yeah, when I first started visiting there, I was, I think, a purple belt, and my sister lives close to the Scarborough location. So I just, when I visit my sister, I would go train, and you know, I would just pop in on open mats. And I remember just thinking to myself, every time I left there, I was like, man, I don't know what I've been training for 10 years, but these guys are doing something way different, right? And then just because you know, Gringo liked me, and you know, I was always welcome. And over the years, I would just pop in here and there, not
Yep.
often, right? But just when I got a chance, and I found it was really good for my learning curve because it was good to get in really good rooms like that with like international superstars, even kids that are like 16 years old crushing grown adults. Like it's kind of crazy to really think about how good you have to be if you want to win at that highest level. So
Oh,
I remember
especially now.
accepting that
My God.
yeah, I remember accepting that I wasn't going to be like a world champion, and but I still loved just fighting and competing and showing other people. So I remember when I got in weight, when I finally lost so when I lost 30 pounds this time, this is the longest time I've ever kept it off. I've never actually kept it off. Like it was always like the same circle of events with the weight. And then same thing with the jiu-jitsu success. It was almost the same circle.
It's very
Like
cyclical. Yeah.
if I was really fit, then I would probably do a lot better, right? But um, I got really lucky, I think, too, because I was naturally, you know, I was better from. I remember when I first started, and I don't think it was my drunk fight clubs that made me good, but I think
Yeah.
the
But it
the way
played a
I thought,
role. But it played a role.
yeah, the way I thought for jujitsu, I think it was really good. It helped me that way.
Well, it's just interesting how you talk about, I guess, like how your perception of jujitsu and the sport changes over time as well, right? Like you start when you're in your 20s or whatever it is, and you have this set of like, well, this is what I'm gonna do, and all these beliefs. But it's like as the years go by, your age changes. That's what's cool about jujitsu is that it can mean different things to you at different times in your life. It's got a lot of different layers to it. So like if you're young and hungry and want to throw down and compete all the time, that's there. But I feel like as you get older, it's like you just appreciate the connections, the relationships, the ability to train, the mental health benefits. And that's when it's like for me at sort of at black belt, that's kind of where I feel is like I'm a very competitive guy still. I want to compete, but it's like you just appreciate having it in your life more than anything, you know? Whereas I think when you're younger, you're just, you think that these belts are going to mean certain things, and you get there and it's like your perception of what this all means changes so much over the years, you know?
Yeah. So Oscar, he's training right now in Niagara Falls. My friend Oscar, another very good black belt,
Okay.
and he had beaten me a long time ago. He's gonna probably see this. I don't know if he's gonna watch this or not, but he,
We're going to get it. We're
a
going to
long
send
time
this
ago,
to him.
he had beaten me a long time ago when I was a purple belt, and not that it crushed me. I just remember how he did it, and he did crush me, but like it sent me into a much different thinking pattern coming back from that, thinking like man, I can't even fight these young guys anymore. Like I gotta go into the older guy division
Yeah.
now, right? Like I remember making that decision, like because it was so devastating. Because I don't know how many hours you spend, you know, and then you know whatever you can say pre-game played a factor and stuff, but I found, yeah, with the training, I had to really think about what I really wanted out of competition because, you know, it wasn't really about winning and losing anymore. It was really just, like I said, like you said, making connections, and, you know, it gives you motivation to stay in the gym all the time and keep yourself straight. And then, but the thing is, competition is only like one part of what people like about jiu-jitsu, right? Most people that train don't actually compete at all. Most gyms have, you know, tons of other purple belt, brown belt, and now with all the new black belts that are in the province coming through, especially with this newer, younger generation, it's much different. Like these guys have to learn so much more. Like
Yeah.
I used to, you know, what we learned when we were at our capacity for white and blue belt, much different for what white and blue belt is right now. So just with the evolution of jiu-jitsu, and then obviously the evolution of how people are sharing jiu-jitsu with the
Yeah.
internet and
Oh,
everything,
yeah.
it changed everything. And then
Yeah.
I think it's great. And now you're seeing a lot more people make careers out of jiu-jitsu. It's not, it's not really the easiest thing.
I would just want to ask you a little bit about just the evolution of you as a coach. Like you're kind of, you had your foot in coaching and teaching a little bit, but now you're a gym owner. And I just wonder what that experience is like for you. And what is your perspective on coaching? Do you enjoy it more than the competitive side? And tell me a little bit about what it's like to kind of be the head instructor at a gym like that now.
There's like different caps you have to have. So, when you're a gym owner, if you're a gym owner and let's say you're busy all the time and you're maybe not training, so not everyone trains. Not every person that's an owner of their profession, and actually like lots of guys that are black belts don't compete. The same reason why some guys that are black belts are not really in great shape, and you know what I mean. Like everyone's different. So I think when I started to realize like a coach is a much different role than an instructor. So when you're teaching a class, it's much different. And then a coach, when you talk about being a coach, I never actually helped my guys get ready for their fights, like pregame and warm up and stuff. And not until I got to brown belt. And that was only because, to be honest with you, I was trying to like figure out like, man, like I was so nervous. I remember when we had the provincials, it was like, I put so much pressure on myself to win a $5 medal, right?
Yeah.
I did really well.
Yeah.
I did really well. I lost a nail biter, and I remember that. I think that was like the first time my confidence was really like, man, I really think I could finally do this after like 13 or 14 years, really actually do it. And as you get older, people think it gets easier, but it's not. As you're getting older, you're fighting in different divisions, and by the time you get to black belt, you're really the only people that are still fighting at black belt are the guys like us that really just love it, because you know how many people
old battle horses like us just going out there.
How many people fall off. And I never had a great like famed professional career. I've watched your podcast and I've seen some of the world champions stuff, but I love listening to things that they say and how they discuss their training patterns. And, everybody's so different, and I love that idea of competition. But realistically, like I said, it's really has nothing to do with any of that. And most of it is like, I think a lot of people like jiu-jitsu because it is a physical sport, but mental parts of it. And then when I really started understanding to help people coach mentally, because as a personal trainer for the longest time, you don't realize how many things you have to do if you want your client to be successful, right? When I realized that there's so many different roles, so I had to learn a lot really early. So I had to learn how to be an instructor like right away I never had any experience, right? And I had to then teach like fitness and be in front of big crowds all the time. So I think that helped me with my anxiety and stuff. Like I used to get really nervous, but like, then I think when you really like it and you're really comfortable, you take really well to it. So I think when we started coaching and doing more of the mental work with my guys and getting them ready and prepping them, and you see it, you see guys, they cry after matches, they lose or win, and you see some great guys in the gym and then they show up on game day and they don't show up, right?
Well,
and vice versa.
It seems to me like that. I mean, I'm curious about the most challenging parts of it, but it sounds like it must be that piece, because as a coach leading guys into competition, it just seems like so many people respond differently to different things, like before the match, during the match, and after the match. And so you kind of have to probably be a psychologist and a coach and a friend. And I think that juggling all those responsibilities is incredibly difficult, because there is no easy one formula that everybody goes through. That's why I ask a lot of the people like you and all these people, because I'm just so curious about how they deal with competition, and everybody's different, right? Some people are calmer than others. Some people are more panicky. Everybody's got their own little demon, whether it's you're a beast in the training room and you struggle under the lights, or you have tons of anxiety. You like, so I just admire what you do. So is that what you would say is the most difficult piece of it, is trying to figure out what everybody needs at different times?
Yeah, and then it really was the most difficult piece, trying to get people to connect like their mind and all their all the emotions that happen when you show up on game day, all the training. And I found that when I was a coach, they'd say, "Sam, I'm so sorry," and I'm like, "Why are you saying?"
Yeah, they probably feel like they want to do well for you,
And then it's really hard, because I think when I got there probably was a time where I was just competition was like I only thought about competition. I was always trying to train for competition. I think it got to me like a little bit that way. But when I really had to like when I saw my guys, when you see your guys, they have the heartbreak, right? It's really hard to see someone that
Yeah.
do really well in the gym and then they show up and then whatever, they had a bad day. And some people they have one competition, you don't even see them back on the mat. So because that experience. So I remember seeing people's experiences and then trying to put together. So I have my routine and it's much different than it's much different now. So now my warm up, I actually warm up. I don't always warm up.
Yeah.
Right?
You just go in there cold.
When I won the provincials, I remember I don't know, I was like coaching or I was late or something, or they ran it earlier or something. I literally put on my gi. I had walked in there cold. I remember seeing Tyrone, and I'd seen him like all year. He competes on the circuit all the time. I'd seen him throughout the years. And I remember like, man, this guy's gonna be a tough match. Like,
yeah.
Am I ready? And then I literally remember thinking in my head. So this is part of the mental part. I remember telling myself like, just I was already like, it was almost like I was talking myself down from losing already in my first match. I'm like, it's okay, he's really tough, and
that's
but I remember physically being like, no, you're gonna go out there, like you're gonna win this match. So that's what I really started to notice was the more times that I started to say stuff like that, like in private when I'm listening to my music or whatever. And even I remember going into the final match. And the thing is that we're just talking about a provincial tournament, which doesn't mean a lot to some people, but the way that we think about it means so much. It's so intense. It's a memory.
It's still a significant accomplishment. Yeah.
Yeah. So I remember going out to that last match, and I was so tired. My arms were like gassed, and my forearms. That's the other thing I started doing the mace for. My grip strength.
Yeah.
It's amazing for grip strength.
Really?
So
okay.
I remember gassing after your first match. That lactic acid, you're like dying. Your friends are shaking your arms. And you're like you're about to cry. Like that's how I felt dead. And I was like, okay, I made it this far. I've gotten second so many times, right? And I just literally remember sitting in the bullpen before my match came out, and I didn't warm up or anything that day. So that's why I'm saying like whatever happened that day, it was completely different than any other day up until that point. But I just remember my last thought before I went out and I won that last match was, I was like, no, you're going to go and you're going to win. You've been training for like so long. So I remember having that mental conversation with myself. So I think that's really important, especially with jiu-jitsu, but any competition or any sport, team sports, especially when you train with people and you're around people all the time that have similar like mental, that I find that helps you so much. So when I really started to coach people on stuff like that, and then also talk to them about how like when you're nervous and you get anxiety, you do really weird stuff like
oh god.
So I think and I don't think I have a high level of anxiety, but I think I really started to realize like with the coaching, with being a student, and then going into a head coaching role, that you realize that you have you may not think you have an effect on people, but sometimes that 1 hour of jiu-jitsu is like that's really the best part of someone's day, or maybe they need that to like whatever mentally. But that I think that was like really the biggest connection, and it wasn't until way later, like I said, in my career, and so we'll see what happens. That's what I was talking about before, where it's not like it's over. There's no start and finish. Like I plan to do jiu-jitsu until for as long as my body allows me to do it. If I can roll at 65, I'm gonna roll at 65. If at 50 I have to slow it down a little bit and like maybe not roll, all the time, then that's okay. Because at the end of the day, I really just love. That's what I love. Everything that jiu-jitsu has given me, essentially.
Well, just tell me, like, since you brought it up too, the winning that provincials, but what did that moment mean to you? Like, what were your thoughts when you finally got your hand raised there, and what was that moment like?
Well, for me, I had like a tough, I'm not gonna say it's a tough year. Like, I had left my old coach. We started a new team. We went with a new affiliate. I was really happy with going with that affiliate. But it was, for me, when I remember having to make those kinds of decisions, it was really hard. Like these really hard decisions. And but I remember when I really had to think about making that decision, it was really about jiu-jitsu. It was really about getting myself into better places and learning. I felt like I always want to learn. Like I I don't know, whatever I was doing, I didn't feel, maybe I got stagnant when I became a coach, that I wasn't learning, I wasn't stimulating myself. And even at the time, I didn't like jiu-jitsu like the way I love it now, because it wasn't like, I was always training for competition, always getting hurt, always cutting weight, always, like it almost became like very obsessive, right?
Yeah.
So when I started to realize, like, and then, so after going through that, and then, so when I started, I remember I earlier in the year, I did really well at the Ontario Open, right?
Okay.
And then I competed at the Parabellum. So we were supposed to fight at Parabellum,
I
right?
know. Oh, that would have been, I know, man. That was the worst.
Yeah.
Like, I was really excited. I was really pumped because I knew, I knew you're really tough, and I just thought it was going to be a lot of fun. And
Yeah.
I destroyed my leg, and I was just so, I'm glad you kind of brought that up, because I really admired that you just like, they were just like, here's another dude, and you just stepped up, and that, honestly, that turned out to be like,
I just wanted to fight.
no, I know, but I just respect that. Like, I just thought it was really cool, because I don't know, things happen, and sometimes people just, but you had such an awesome performance too. I know it didn't go your way, but it was just, it literally, I think, was the fight of the night. Like, it was a pretty wild performance.
Yeah, when Rory approached me about it, so I had been off for so long. I had the provincials in December,
right,
and then I had Parabellum in February, and then we were doing the Ontario Open in May, and then all the times in between, all the other events, traveling all over the place, like every, twice a month sometimes. So giving up an entire weekend, from Friday night till Sunday sometimes, for something that was like, a hobby for old guys, I guess. Anyways,
yeah.
And I remember Parabellum. So the way I had actually, when I trained for Parabellum, I was training gi for all the way up to provincials. And then I literally just spent 6 to 8 weeks only training no gi, but teaching gi, but only training no gi to like really hone in. I actually got injured in training because I knew that you were going to be a good leg lock guy. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to just go and train leg locks.
Yeah.
That's when I really started like looking you up. And so, but even just the way I prepared to fight that, by the time I got to the actual day, I remember I didn't get hurt, but
you get people cranking on your legs 24/7. Yeah.
We were training so hard.
Oh no, I no doubt, man.
It was everything that we were doing, and I thought I was doing everything, everything was right. At that time, I wasn't the head coach, so I'm just doing, I'm doing what I'm told. I'm just like, okay, I'm gonna show up for practice, or we're gonna do whatever drills. Even at that time, even though I never really had big success. So then, coming off the provincial, winning the silver, in last year, or in 2018, and then going into Parabellum, the way I trained was so much different.
Yeah.
But I remember after Parabellum really, really, really thinking like, okay, before I go back in May, I had some injuries I had to really go back and nurse. So then I invested all of my time, all the time, doing kettlebells and steel mason and all the hammers and all that stuff, right? And then, and then I had a really, really good Ontario Open. When I had Parabellum, the rules are different. I didn't even study the overtime rules. I'm an idiot. Like, I'm going into like a match. I had not practiced a single overtime round. I didn't do a single overtime round. Man.
Yeah.
I didn't like. I honestly didn't know. It's not an excuse, but if I had maybe understood the rules a little better.
Yeah, well, it's pretty unique, right? Like, it's not the kind of thing you're going to encounter anywhere else, right? Yeah.
It's such a popular format with the sub only, and it's not about points. It's only about submission. So you have the jiu-jitsu guys are like, it doesn't work on the street and don't use it type of guys. And then you have the you have the gi guys, and you have the no gi guys, right? But it's all jiu-jitsu, man.
We just need to all get along at some point, for Christ's sakes.
Yeah, you don't want to compete or whatever. It's cool, but I felt like I had so much weight on my shoulders, because when I did the Parabellum, I'm a gym. Rory asked me to compete, and then you got hurt, and Carlos, another guy that I'd seen also through the scene, and I was like, man, I knew he was tough.
Yeah,
he was tough, man.
Yeah,
we had a really high, fast-paced match. I never trained for overtime. I only trained to try to get the submission. So all the training sessions were like, we were hammering each other. But
but that's what made it so exciting. Is like you guys just went after it. Like, it was really, really like
it was really close. I had no energy. I was gassed
I
for the
still remember
overtime,
you. I
and
still
he
remember
did
you
great.
that arm
But
bar at the end. Like you just gave it
I
like
didn't get it.
everything you had.
I
No, I know,
cranked
but
it,
it was just like you
but
were.
like I didn't have it. He was really tough, man. He was
Oh,
really,
he's
really
that. But
tough.
that's what I thought was cool though. Is like you're thinking it's gonna be me and my whatever my style might be, and then you're just like take this really random guy that's super tough, and I don't know. I just admired it. I thought it was a great
He was
performance.
definitely, yeah. So like I said, Rory was he's a really good matchmaker. So he
Yeah.
didn't put me up against somebody that was like, he didn't put me up against someone that was a complete mismatch, right? He picked, guys over 30 at the
Yeah.
brown belt level. He had like, and that was really cool. And I like it because it was the first time in Ontario we'd seen anything like that. So
Oh,
when he
I know.
asked me to be on the card, whether it be the undercard or the main card, I was like, cool, like I'm in. I want to
I'm
do it
in.
because
Yeah.
like, that was, but like I said, with all the pressure and the feeling like I had all this weight. So even after that, I lost and I had a great match. And a lot of people then, when I'm going to other rooms now, some people are like, man, I saw your match at Parabellum, and it was really cool because that was when I was like, I don't really have a lot of fans. I don't think I have a lot of fans, but that was the first
I
time when
think
I
a
had
lot of
people
people. I
approach
think a lot
me.
of people like you and respect you a
Yeah.
lot, man.
So people would approach you at tournaments and just say hi, and you're always talking to the other owners. You're always talking to other black belts. You're around the similar minded people, but it's cool to just see people come up and be like, "Man, I saw your match at Parabellum," and then also after people coming to train with you, because then you know it's really cool how that all worked. But like I said, I felt so broken after. Like I was injured. I had to take. I
Oh.
think I took like I don't know 5 or 6 weeks off. I
Oh
didn't
wow.
roll for about 5 or 6 weeks after Parabellum, and that was in like I'm trying to remember when that was. It was in February,
Yeah.
so last year in February, and
Ugh,
then I had
a
May.
year
So
ago.
for me at 37, when you compete in December and then you compete in like late February, and then like I'm not complaining because the younger guys, they compete every month, every other month, twice a month. They just keep going. I don't know how they do it, but for me, just doing 3 or 4 a year, that's like 3 or 4 months of time
Yeah.
invested to every single event. And so I remember after Parabellum, just man being so broken and not like I don't know if I really enjoyed it. Like I felt success, but I didn't know if I enjoyed it. And then
Yeah.
anyways, I really remember having to make really tough calls and the tough decisions, and realizing that I wasn't going the same direction, etc. So,
Well,
that's
that's what I
why
was
for
going to
me,
ask
like,
you is because I think
yeah,
it wasn't that long after that I think I recall you kind of
no,
switching. So that must have been a really, and I don't want to
tough.
put you on the spot. I just mean it must have been an emotional thing for you, right? Because it's hard in this sport. You have friendships and relationships, and it's like a marriage. It's like you grow in different directions, and it's like it's a natural thing. It's just I imagine that kind of weighed on you, kind of going into that as well a little bit.
Yeah, it was really hard because that affected my social life, my personal life. It affected my jiu-jitsu life. So like it really just that let's say whatever you want to call it. But at the end of the day, it was very clear we just weren't on the same page anymore. And even
Yeah.
though we had together so long, but what I realized when I started meeting a lot of other people and getting into other gyms was that I actually lived in a very small bubble because I never actually got to, until I started to compete, until I started to meet other people and started training. So when cross training became a thing in the community, that was like really huge because, when I was in Niagara, I used to talk to Kevin and those guys and
Hmm.
say, man, like we should be trying to beat the Toronto schools. I understand you're from a different school than me, but can you come
You're
and
in the
train?
same area. You're kind of in each other's
Yeah.
backyard. So
So
instead of being
they
rivals, let's kind of work together, right?
let's help. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was helping Scott, and those guys were good. Those guys were competing all the time,
Yeah.
and I was just like, no, they kept asking me and asking me, and I was like, no, I don't know. I always had an excuse, and it was because I was so nervous, and I was like, I don't know. So I remember getting back on the mats, that really changed. Like, okay, I like being on the mats. I want to compete. How long can I do this for? I don't know, but I'll try and do it for as long as I can at whatever age I can, appropriately for the level that I'm at, because it was never about that. But um, that getting to that like stage later in my career, because I also knew that my time at brown belt was coming up. Like, I'd been a brown belt, almost 4 years, and most people get, depending on how long you've been training, etc. Like I was training obviously a lot more than the average person because of my career, but
Hmm.
um, I remember like I can't. It was like a weight, When I won provincials, I never expected to win. I didn't. I really never expected to win Parabellum, which I didn't win, right? And even when you you know, when your friends are like, oh, you got second, like they don't even realize like it's really freaking hard. You might have 5 matches in a day.
Yeah,
It's
absolutely.
physically exhausting. The younger guys do like more matches, you know.
Yeah.
Depends. Some of the divisions that you see where they have to fight 10 fights. So
Oh
I
God.
just remember taking that approach completely differently, and then getting through Parabellum and getting to the provincials. It was that's why I was so happy about it. And I was like, because I honestly never really expected it. And then I knew that for me, it was almost like I had to prove something because I was, you know, a brown belt. But
Yeah.
I don't know. I felt like it was all like, I just made all this crap up in my head. Now, when I really got to the black belt, I realized like, man, it's just so weird, right? Because
Yeah.
everyone has such a different journey. I talked to so many guys now that have talked about their journey. And, you know, it's actually very common for, I noticed with the more competitive guys that when they get to a certain level, they will, you know, possibly jump around or switch. And I think at the end of the day, if you're not getting what you want from jiu-jitsu or from your school or whatever, then like what you said earlier, you got to go out and seek and find,
Well,
you know,
I
and that's
think
why
times have
yeah.
changed too, and I know that like the martial arts scene, it used to be more territorial that way, and it still is to a degree, but it's more of an open community now than it ever was before, where it's like people cross train, people want to learn from their friends. They don't want to be sort of restricted to a certain environment or like and I think coaches now should want you to kind of experience what's out there, right? And for your own
Um,
growth and for your own development, you know?
yeah, for me as a coach, I think the mentality of what a black belt, you know, like it's just really weird because it is really just a belt.
Yeah.
It's a belt. Like, no, most people that you talk to, unless they're into training or they've done some type of martial arts, it's not something you really talk about or tell people. Like, it's not the first thing I introduce myself as.
Yeah, yeah.
I introduce,
It doesn't. I That's what I
like,
do all the
hi,
time.
I'm a
Yeah,
black belt. Like,
yeah.
you
Yeah.
know, but
Yeah.
it's really weird. But some people, that's what I found. So I found that because I come from a white belt and, you know, just a guy training, an older guy training, and then coming into a career about it, you know, for me, I thought competition was like how you put yourself on the map and how
Yeah.
you gain all this clout or whatever the kids would say, clout. But yeah, when it wasn't about that anymore, when it wasn't about that, the success was way everything just seemed to come together. And
Yeah.
unfortunately, like I said, with 2020, we haven't had a chance. But whatever, we'll see what happens, I guess.
Look, man, I want to just ask you one last thing to end here. Just a bit of a, just because I've got you here, and I've been like you. I've had, in terms of weight, I've been up and down, and I've been lean, and then I gain it back. I just wonder, can you tell me a little bit about what you've learned about diet and nutrition, and what you said this is the longest you've kept it off. What have you been doing, and why has it been successful this time?
So I just feel like I I used to hate food. Like
Really?
I love, no, not hate food. I love food,
You just had,
but
yeah.
I hated, like, I always associated like McDonald's bad, chips bad, like, you
Yep.
know. And then I started to really study and learn, you know, try all the different diets, do every single thing that every person could have done, you know, with the juice cleanse. And when you start doing all that stuff, you realize it's really hard. Like, it's so hard to maintain. And the
Yep.
only reason why I was doing all these things was to make a weight for competition, right? So
Okay.
you basically are like killing yourself to win a $5 medal or whatever. And I just found that when I had a better relationship with nutrition, I really started to understand like it's okay to eat, you know. And I have people like Janine is actually one of the people I follow really well on the.
McIver?
She's yeah, so
Yeah,
she's
yeah.
one of the instructors over at Gringo. I really like following people like her because I use her as an example because she, you know, she does the same type of coaching and the philosophy and stuff. So that's why I think when
So it's
you
this
really
idea largely
tie
that
together,
like you don't vilify certain food groups, like
yeah,
carbs are not terrible for, it's just
no,
it's more
exactly,
about like, are you just more of like a moderation guy, or what is it?
everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, moderation. So the reason why I kept yo-yoing up and down was I don't have the healthiest diet. Like, I know lots of other instructors that we have. To be honest, we actually have the most terrible diet. Some of the guys that I know that
Yeah.
compete and they do all kinds of great things, but they have the most terrible
Yeah.
diets. But when it comes to that 6 to 8 week block where they're getting ready for competition, they have to make weight or do whatever, they're literally willing to kill themselves and go, into all
Super
kinds of
extreme,
crazy.
yeah.
Yeah, it's always something extreme, right? So, the sweat cuts and the starvation for, 72 hours. And it's crazy how those guys can do that kind of stuff where they starve for, a couple days, 3, 4 days, and then they make the weight and then they still have the energy because you have to fight. Like, when
Yeah,
I
that
walked out
blows
to
my
Provincial,
mind when people do that and they still seem to
yeah,
have energy. I don't get it. But so were
but
you
that's,
very restrictive then in the past? Is that kind of how you would
yeah,
lose weight? Okay.
super restrictive. I would starve. I would like fast. The juice, the salad, 6 week salad diets.
Ugh.
And then I was coaching a lot of MMA fighters, and you know, I realized when I love like UFC. I love watching, but for me as a training perspective, it just wasn't. I just love jujitsu. It was never, MMA and stuff for me. But when you help and you coach and you see those guys like the stuff that they have to do, and even Cody, my partner, I seen him go through some crazy weight cuts,
Ugh,
and
they're literally dying. Like it's not an exaggeration to say that they are dying in front of you. You know, it's close. Like if they push too far, their kidneys shut down, heart
mm-hmm.
failure. Like it's crazy.
So it's cool that they've changed the sport for that. So I really like all the things that you're seeing where they're really taking into account that effect on people. So they're starting to restrict, it differently. But yeah, I found just with the diet part of it, it was really understanding, what you put into your body. So then I started to really cook a lot all the time. So when I started to, develop another hobby into cooking and stuff, I like cooking specifically Asian food. Like it's really has
Dude, I follow your Instagram. I'm constantly hungry. It's like I got to get a steel mace as well. But it looks like you're making some good stuff there all the time.
yeah, it's all like traditional food. So even when I was younger and growing up, I ate all the same amount of food. It really didn't change. But what changed was that I was cooking it myself, and you're
Okay.
making it yourself, and you're meal prepping. And I always talk about how it is really hard if you people. I know people that meal prep, and I know people that do bodybuilding, and I see they're actually the best example because I know so many people that do the bodybuilding and the shows, and their diet has to be so strict
Yeah.
before
Oh,
they
it's
do that.
insane.
So I felt like when I found a better relationship with that, and then maybe just maybe my body image or mental health, whatever you want
It's
to say,
like
because I
jujitsu. Maybe as you've gotten older, you think about it differently, right? You're not trying to drive your body all the time into these crazy holes. I just wonder, like, so now, have you noticed, like, did you do the low carb thing, and can you at least
yeah,
speak
yeah.
to how different nutritional approaches have either helped or hurt you on the mat specifically?
So low carb is one I don't really believe in diet anymore. I just believe in
Okay.
that you can eat you can eat really well and still enjoy all kinds of I don't even think chips and pizza and beer you can drink. To be honest with you, if you really understand how nutrition works. So when I started to eat better to get ready for all these events, it was because I had to make weight. So I
Yeah.
had to like really, really eat clean, and it was really good. Like it taught me the discipline. It taught me a lot, right?
Sure.
Because I've never missed weight, and it's not like I'm not making weight like an MMA fighter makes weight, where you have to
Yeah.
lose it. You have a 24-hour period, but it's still really hard. You have to keep super disciplined. And with the low carb, I found I never had the energy to train. So then I would eat salad for lunch, eat salad for dinner.
Yeah.
Your breakfast is like a piece of toast. And I would follow all the diets that you had on Google. But then, like I said, when you start seeing all the information that's being put out there by people, and then you get attracted to whatever whoever you're following or whatever mentality or plan. So what I found with all the diets, everything from the low carb to the keto to I really like vegetarian, but like vegan, just all the different plans that you can
Mm-hmm.
think about. I just like I said, when I actually really really took the time to understand what worked for myself, but I just feel like people underestimate how hard it is to really really like keep on some of the tighter regimens. And now, like I said, portion control and just understanding like when you're eating really healthy really well, whether diet you're following. When I was in the training room, it helped me so much. So that's when I really left the pizza and all that. But then, like, I still love all that stuff, and I just had pizza like probably it's not that I'm not eating any of that stuff, but I just I just found that you don't have to you don't have to limit yourself that much.
Yeah.
The problem a lot of time is just control. But I started coaching even my clients in the fitness and doing sessions and helping them. I don't really give them any diet plan, but I explain to them that sometimes when you start these ideas, like it's really helpful because it'll work for you. But at the end of the day, if you can't find something that's sustainable for you, it's super hard to stay on it. And I think then it sends people into that, like, they get super depressed because you feel like you failed and all that stuff, right? But
well, my sister works. I mean, I was talking about this with Lachlan Giles' wife, because she's gone through crazy, and she was in gymnastics. So there's a lot of eating disorder stuff, and it's just that the problem is when you do a crazy diet and it's unhealthy, but you get a result, people think, well, there's the only way to do it. And you're right. I think that's what triggers the cycles, is that, yeah, you can do a diet like that for a period of time, but your body's going to eventually push back because it's not healthy. And then you end up going on these ups and downs. So even though you say, well, I don't have an education or whatever, that advice to me is so smart and wise and healthy, because you're going to see a lot of people on Instagram that are only eat meat and that's it. Don't eat anything else, or never have a carb in your life. And these people get a lot of traction, and I'm not saying that there might not be a place for that, but as a general rule of thumb, I don't think it's a healthy thing. And to have a leader like you, as a guy who's fit and you're preaching healthy habits, I think that's awesome, because there are a lot of fit people that are preaching a lot of really dangerous stuff on Instagram these days.
Yeah, so I think everybody they hit a point. If you've been training a really long time, then when you hit, like, let's say 5, 6, 7 years in the gym consistently all the time, it's not really anymore about your physical look anymore, and it's more really maybe about your mental health, or or maybe it is about your physical. Maybe the whole thing is about your whole physical look. So that's what I think people really really get lost when they start these kinds of things, that maybe when you start something, you have one goal, but then as you go, you don't really adjust and you just keep going with it, right? So you could be doing something severely wrong. And then that's what I find too with Instagram is there's a lot of, they sell a lot of stuff, like you said, is super unhealthy. I'm not saying I have all of the most healthy habits, but things that I can control, like what I can put into my system and stuff like that. But
well, it's funny, man, because I think we look at, it's just the last point is just, we look at people and it's like, sometimes you can look quote unquote good, but your performance sucks, right? And sometimes you might look a little heavier, but you're mentally healthier, your performance is better. And so I think we've gotten to a point especially in the Instagram age, where we equate the two things as being the same. Oh, well, if you're jacked out of your mind and you're shredded, that you're going to perform at your best. When a lot of times that's bullshit. Like even fitness competitors, they're at their weakest and most unhealthy on the stage, right? Like if you see them off the stage, they're probably 20, 30 pounds heavier, eating differently. And so I just like to say that, because I think in jiu-jitsu and weight sports, there is that issue of people getting into bad habits because they want to make the weight or this or that. So I just admire people like you that are doing, you have a good mindset in terms of longevity and health. It's not a quick fix. And I think that's a really important message.
Yeah. I think when, like now I know I want to do jiu-jitsu forever. So
yeah, exactly.
It doesn't matter if I compete or don't compete. Right now I'm just competing as much as I can because I'm healthy and I'm thankful that I can do that. But yeah, like it's when I think about that's when I think about fitness, and I think about how to train. I think about how to eat. That's what I think about, is like, can I do this forever? So that's what I found with all the stuff that you sell. Like, I remember buying fat burner pills.
I remember those too. Oh my God.
I don't know, fat burner pills.
Heart attack pills, you mean?
I don't know. Terrible.
Yeah.
I never even took like pre-workout shake, and now I like pre-workout, but even that kind of stuff, I don't always take pre-workout anymore.
Yeah.
I just, I found stuff like that. But as far as the diet goes, I really believe you don't have to starve to, especially with the sports that we do where you have to make weight. and weight is always a thing, right? So if you're always trying to make weight all the time, it really, you're, the up and down it can be really big, or depending on how much weight you're trying to cut. So my mentality with all that when I'm training is that if I always stay in my weight category, then I never really have to worry. So to do that, you just have to be really, you don't have to be perfect, but you can make sure that, I just read this thing on I follow all these things on Instagram, and basically it was saying you don't have to eat like an asshole every day. Like you can't eat like an asshole every day, but don't feel like an asshole if today is the day that you're going to go and put like a 4-liter ice cream and a bag of chips and 12 beers, whatever, man. Like that's why I think people really forget. And that's why I always say all this stuff is, like, for me, it's all very tied in together. Everything with the nutrition, the fitness, and the jiu-jitsu.
Well, look, man, you're a great guy. I really appreciate taking the time to do this. Don't be surprised to ask you to come on. People love you. I've literally never heard a bad word about you. Every time I've heard people, they're like, "Oh, fuck, Sam's a great guy. You've always been really cool with me. You're fun to watch. I admire you as a competitor and as a coach. I admire you as a gym owner going through this right now. You've stayed positive. You're doing great things. So thanks so much for giving me your time, man. It means a lot. How can people find you in the gym online if they want to look you up?
Yeah, so you can find me. We're at Evolve MMA and Fitness. We're in St. Catharines here. Okay. And you can find our Instagram. I'm sure you're going to link it in the link. I hope.
Will, absolutely.
And we have a great staff, and I'm really happy with I'm really happy that we're just allowed right now to be in the gym.
Yeah.
I hope that doesn't change. I know for other people, like my brother is actually also a gym owner, so I know the difference. Like, I'm really happy because I'm here in Niagara, and our restrictions are a lot different. And so I can totally understand the stress that some of the other guys are feeling. And I like the whole community aspect because, I remember with, I know for you with your gym closing, with like just seeing stuff like that and just seeing all that kind of, it makes you really sad because, like, when I talk about jiu-jitsu, I used to like not like the person that I'm competing against. But then when I got to 30, I realized, like, that guy has a dad, and we all have a job. We all do. So that's why I realized,
cool.
That's all I got, man.
Do you want me to link it to your personal account too, so they can see all your steel mace action?
You can find me at Samo.
Okay.
And,
I'll link
you can see. I specifically try to post. I try to stick to like working out and fitness, and then just really stuff that I eat. So
it's cool, man. There's some cool routines. If people aren't familiar with the steel mace thing, you got to check it out. I think it's really cool. Thanks so much, man. I really enjoyed talking to you. So I hope things get better for you in the gym. I hope these restrictions kind of end soon, and I'll see you, I guess, whenever I see you in the future, man.
Thanks, Paul.
Okay.
You have a good night.
All right. Have a good one, Sam.
I don't know how to hang this thing up.
Okay. No worries. I'll hang it.
Really like, there we go.
All right,
hey,
man.
Guys, have a great night.